Hi. A transaction can always be assessed in two ways. One way is value and one way is utility. We've already talked about utility. There's our end user. There's utility. Utility is that bundles of goods and services that is going to make this person happier. It's not quite equivalent. The utility is not quite equivalent to that bundle of goods and services, but we can roughly measure utility of different things by looking at correspondence with different bundles of goods and services and how those relate. The other way we can talk about a transaction is in terms of value. That is in terms of the price of the transaction, the amount of money that's going around. Value is different than utility. Utility is multidimensional, it's hard to measure, but we can talk about more or less. We can roughly talk about a bundle of goods and services. In value, it's precise. We know what the price is, and we can say, with this price, you can buy that. And we can compare things in terms of what they buy with a high level of precision. Why do we bring up the difference between utility and value at this point? Well, first of all, just to emphasize that a deal always includes both, and utility is only roughly equivalent to value. And secondly, because that is the core of the ethics of commercialization and technology transfer, a topic that's not usually talked about. Most people, when they think about ethics, I'm going to move this over so we can write on it, think about value ethics. Value ethics have to do with what makes it possible to do the transaction. There are ethics intrinsic in doing transactions. There are things like be honest, honor a non-disclosure agreement, if you sign a deal, honor the deal. These are things that are necessary to preserve value, and if you don't, there's a cost which we can measure, and it makes it more costly to do deals. So we can say the impact of non-disclosure agreements is this, it's going to cost this. The impact of that, well, I got somebody engaged in fraud with me, I lost X amount of dollars. That's a whole area that we're going to set aside for now, but it's important. I don't want to deny it's important. You need to have that in order to keep deals moving. But the second area that I want to, I'm setting my watch so I don't over talk. The second area I want to look at is utility ethics. Now there are three great utility ethics we want to think about. The first utility ethic, and these are all things that should be, there's no hard and fast here, but they go into when you do a deal you need to think about. The first thing you want to think about is, should I move this technology? Should I even move it? Suppose you have a technology that is a better way to get children addicted to tobacco. It's a new gene for tobacco. It makes it more addictive and higher in whatever causes the cancer, the nicotine, and the other toxins in it, and it's going to kill you. I guess nicotine doesn't cause cancer, actually, now that I think about it. But nonetheless, it's higher than that. Should you move that? Absolutely not. Suppose you have a manufacturing process that's going to accelerate global warming. So instead of in 250 years, in 50 years, the northern hemisphere is going to burn up because it's so hot and dry. Well, don't want to do that either. So that's the should part. The second part is how. It doesn't make sense for the U.S. government to support universities and federal labs in doing research on better pharmaceuticals if when the university and federal lab licenses that pharmaceutical, the drug company turns around and sells it cheaper in Canada than in the U.S. Gotta wonder about that. Easily avoidable. Write the license with a most favored nation clause. Suppose there's certain applications. That means they can't charge more in the U.S. than anywhere else. Suppose there's certain applications which are kind of orphan applications, socially very important, but not going to make a lot of money. Great. Have a differential royalty rate on a license deal or whatever, or sell the technology to somebody else, or just give it away to a group of people to use it for that application, to a nonprofit. There is ways around that on the how. 3. Who? Let's take a dramatically different example. Energetics, explosives, detonators for explosives. Suppose you've developed a better detonator, it's safer, more reliable, more control over it. You may want to license it to legitimate vendors who make demolition explosives that are used to tear down buildings and bridges and all these things. They just blew up a bridge in Rhode Island about 2 or 3 months ago when they built a replacement for it. No reason you shouldn't license that to those people. You might want to have a how that says you're going to check out who you sell it to so they don't sell it to a terrorist. But you're definitely not going to license it to Al-Qaeda, for example, so they can blow up buildings better. So should you license it? How should you license it? Who should you license it to? Perhaps even when to license it. Those factors go to utility, to is this something that will make the world better off or not?